Okay, ready to go?
As I'll ever be.
Oh, panic. Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the April 2026 episode of Cloud State of Play. Now, it is said that it's better to have an opinion on something, even if you're wrong, or if people don't actually agree with you on that opinion, rather than actually not having an opinion or not saying anything. So here's somebody who's always putting his opinion out there, even though I don't always agree with him. It's the prolific Paul Bevan.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time this goes out.
Or good evening.
Yeah, and we do have a great sort of interaction, and we've managed not to beat each other up, though. That's quite good.
We've not been at loggerheads for a while, actually. I need to find us a controversial topic, which I know you'll come down on from an opposite side to me, and then we can see what happens. Yeah, let the mayhem begin.
I think the term data center might start.
Oh yes, I sent you something on that recently. You see, dear viewers, we have lots of stuff going on in the background, WhatsApp, emails, all sorts of stuff going on, which you're not privy to. You do not see that. You're sheltered from that. But that's kind of how Paul and I operate. But yeah, I think I've sent you something on data center recently, which we will maybe pick up on a future episode. So again, watch out for that in the next episode. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah. Well, as good as I can be in this crazy world we live in at the moment.
Yeah, and the crazy weather as well, because I think I may have spoken too soon in the previous March episode when I said spring is here. We've actually now got a bit of rain coming.
And cold. I've been in Northern Ireland. I've been in Northern Ireland for a week, and the wind's been coming directly from the Arctic, so it's been more like,
oh my word, right.
It wasn't too wet, but my God, it was cold.
It was cold. Right. Okay. So shall we get on with our topics for this month?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So our topics for April are, number one, driving business value by optimizing the cloud. This is an MIT Tech Review Insights report in association with AWS. It was published in April, I think, so not too long ago of this year, and it's about delivering maximum value from the cloud. To deliver maximum value from the cloud, companies must strike the right balance between cost, security, reliance, and innovation. Not asking too much there. Okay, so that's the first topic. Second topic is, what are little APIs made of? Now that's actually my title. The actual title of the post is the API Master Guide, and it's about APIs and APIs being contracts between systems. So that sounds quite interesting. We'll explore that a little bit more. And the third topic is called neglecting cloud. Good luck with your AI. So that's an article that came out on, I think, CIO magazine, CIO.com. So it says most IT leaders worry that their cloud spending isn't keeping up with their AI needs, let alone closing their cloud maturity gap for AI success. So that should be an interesting one. So those are our three topics for this month. Now, before we get on to the topics, you know what's coming. Did you know that 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet to this channel? Come on, guys, we can do better, surely. So please hit subscribe and the notification bell. It costs nothing, but it really helps me to keep making more videos for you. All right, back to the therapy session. So, Paul, our first topic is driving business value by optimizing the cloud. Now, this is a report by MIT Tech Review Insights, which is a bit of a mouthful. We'll just say MIT, I think, to make it easy, in association with AWS. Now, this came out this month in April of this year. So, I think it's kind of, I think the main theme is about sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of what I understood was, now that you kind of migrated to cloud, that's not the end of it, right? And we've said this before, right? We've said this umpteen number of times in the past. So, but actually migrating to cloud is kind of not the end of the story. You need to continue to, optimize. You need to continue to, look at kind of your operations and scaling and, and things like that, and continue to really improve and develop your cloud environment, which I think is, I think that kind of really makes sense. So the bit that I picked up on, just to kind of start it off, and then I'll get you to come in, is said organizations are increasingly investing in cloud, focusing on optimization to balance the cost, the security, resilience, and innovation for business growth. So there's a number of themes in there, but I'll let you maybe just kind of come in a little bit on that first, and then kind of get your take on the report itself.
Yeah, it was one of those reports that you think, well, yeah, you haven't really told us anything new we didn't already know.
It's a bit academic, yeah.
It was a bit academic, and it was, but it struck me that, this is really the point at which everybody starts to realize that, if they hadn't already, that cloud is the way in which compute works these days. So it's become mainstream. It's become the normal way of doing things.
Right.
And it runs into all those sort of maturity problems that says, actually, it's got a little bit out of hand. We did it all too fast, and we need to get a grip on it. And we can argue about whether people focus too much on just cost, and the tone of the article is you need to look at it in a much broader spectrum than just getting control of the costs.
Yeah,
which I think was the right thing to say. But it sort of left me thinking about both MIT and AWS. Was who were they aiming in this at, and what were they expecting to get out of this? I was just, it was a very, there was nothing wrong with the article per se or the report. It was a very high level report. It was, you think, oh my God, MIT report, this is going to be right.
Yeah.
Sit back comfortably, get your reading glasses on. This is going to take some time, and it was a very high level, almost marketing style document, which I found very strange. But having said that, yes, but they're saying things that all good IT operations people should know already.
Yeah,
and you're wondering, who are they actually talking to? I mean, there'll be plenty of organizations out there, and we'll talk about cloud maturity later on, but I mean, there are plenty of organizations out there who I think probably haven't got a handle on this. But then, in sort of 50 years of IT, there would have been plenty of people in an on-prem environment who, a legacy environment, who didn't have a handle on it 50 years down the track. And I think that's where cloud has ended up. It's got into that, right, it's very mature. How are we going to run this? So it was fine inside those sort of criteria. I mean, there was one, I did like, there was one lovely line that came out. I can't remember who did. I had to write it down. I'd never remember it. There was one of the guys that they interacted with, and he said, it's about create a new dollar, generate a dollar faster, stretch a dollar further, and save a dollar. And I thought that was actually quite a neat way of encapsulating it, because obviously create a new dollar was, you're using the cloud to do something new, to create
the innovation,
new value, creation of value. Generate a dollar faster, which was, you can just do more stuff on the cloud faster. That's fine. You'll generate a bit more revenue that way. Stretch a dollar further, you're starting to focus back on the cost side of it.
Yeah.
Save a dollar, I thought was interesting, was stop at certain times, stop doing things.
Yeah, don't use that bit on the cloud.
Don't use that bit. And so as a sort of meme, if you like, about moving it through those cycles, I thought that was quite useful way to think about it. It's absolutely right. But just, the overall tone says you should be looking at creating business value. And I'm thinking, we've been banging that drum now for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And I mean, it's a very good report, guys. I really, advise you to, recommend you to have a look at it. We'll again, obviously, drop the link in the description of the video, so you guys can have a look at it and can sort of download it and look at the report. So it was quite good. I think it wasn't kind of like the Google ones where there's kind of big on graphics and very little text in there. It was kind of a little bit, I think it was well balanced, and it was kind of, good on the visuals and the details on there. Now, the bit that I picked up, and I picked up a number of points, but I picked up on, so it's kind of, hit on a lot of the themes in your intro there for that, or the first kind of feedback on it, Paul. But the ones I picked up on, it said kind of, continuous cloud optimization is a strategic practice. Now, and there was several kind of maybe bullets under that, which we might kind of explore. Like I said, it's quite an extensive report, guys, so we'll probably not be able to, cover it all and do it justice here. But just, I think under that, what I've kind of picked up on is that, yes, we ought to be doing optimization. And again, you and I have spoken about this, a number of times in the past, but there isn't any tooling that's dedicated for that type of activity. There's tooling that's, does your automation. There's tooling that does your security. There's tooling that does your cost management and so on. But there isn't one that kind of looks at the overall picture of optimization. So, and for example, why isn't there a kind of a cleanup tool? If I'm a developer and I create a Kubernetes cluster, even just in test or dev, not in production, and then I've kind of, finished with it, and I've now, don't really need that cluster anymore. I've done my testing for my app and whatever, and then I finished with that Kubernetes cluster. How does that cluster get cleaned up? Is it my responsibility to clean it up? So do I have a script, or do I maybe even just use ClickOps to get rid of it, to delete it? Or is there a policy that's in the GitOps or in the provisioning tools that we have that says, oh, hang on, this cluster's now overrun the time that the developer said he or she would need it for, right? So it's over a week, it's over a month, it's over 3 months, and they've neglected it, they're not using, it's not been active, yeah? But obviously sitting there, utilizing the costs, utilizing the resources, and therefore costing us, in the public cloud. So, because FinOps tools don't seem to do that. The FinOps tools tend to say, oh, that cluster over there has been sitting there for 3 months. Yeah, but it's been sitting there for 3 months. You didn't pick it up on the last day when it was used. You picked it up 3 months after it wasn't being used. Yeah, so you've actually kind of wasted those 3 months, even though that the FinOps tool kind of, picked up on that. So I would like to see, if we're going to do this kind of continuous optimization, I'd like to see a continuous optimization tool that will do that. That might bring in FinOps, that might bring in my manifest from my, GitOps. What does that look like? And does that compare with what I have? Or does the production look exactly like GitOps? Or is GitOps saying, hey, guys, you keep changing all these production clusters all the time, and you're messing around with it, and I'm having to correct, so GitOps is getting involved and, doing his job a little bit too often, let's say, because people are playing around with the production environment, and that's what obviously your GitOps tools are designed to do. They're supposed to kind of, give you that desired state. But there isn't that kind of cost optimization tool that presides over all of these other tools, including our observability tool, to say, well, what happened to that cluster that was, pushed out last week? Because it's now, it's now reached the end of the time period when, the developer said they would need it for. So is it still running? Can I ask the FinOps tool? Can I ask the GitOps tool? And what result would I get? And then can I be authorized to go and kill that cluster because it's gone over the time that the developer said he'd need it? Now, the developer might scream at you and say, well, I actually needed it. I was just waiting for something else and I got delayed. Yeah, okay, but you can just request another one from the platform engineering team, or go to the portal and make a request and it will get provisioned for you. But at least what we're not doing is waiting for the FinOps tool 3 months down the line to say, oh yeah, that cluster over there is not being used, and it's not been used for the last 3 months.
So clearly you talked about policies. There should be policies.
Yeah,
Would you build,
somewhere in
would
there's a
you build
policy.
some of those into the FinOps tool? And what you were describing is great, but you think there's an awful lot of moving parts there. Is this something that you're going to need almost one of those sort of new AI type automated tool to come in and start playing around? Because one of the challenges in the cloud world, isn't it? There's so many moving parts, so many changes so rapidly that actually are expecting humans to sort of capture them all or
especially in the AI space.
Yeah, especially in the AI space. And you think, and again, this will come up in a couple of the other things we're going to talk about. You're getting to the point where you need to automate using AI, but based on policies you've actually had to think through. And here's the tester.
Yeah.
You had to think through. You need to think about that. It's these tools aren't going to do it if you haven't really set them up in the right way. So, but I do think it's an area that from a sort of maintenance point of view, you ought to be looking at how do we develop AI around doing that based on best practice policies.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see, like I said, around that space where you've got your, FinOps tools, your GitOps tools, your DevOps tools, and so on, all coming together. I don't really care who does that, and your observability. And I don't care which tool does that. Maybe it's your FinOps, it's the responsibility of your FinOps tool. But if it can't, then let's have like a cloud optimization tool, not a cloud cost management or cloud cost optimization, but just an optimization tool of some kind, or an optimization feature in FinOps, so that FinOps is a little bit more clever and not highlighting things after the event, right? Not, like I said, not saying yes, that test cluster is still up and running, but actually it's now, not been used for the last 3 months. Yeah, I wanted to do that straight away, as soon as that first week or whatever the period was that cluster was requested for. I wanted to do it then. And and you're right, you can't do that unless there's like a policy that we put in place, right, to do that. Yeah, and again, whether that policy is imported into the FinOps tool or elsewhere, we need something on that. But just to pick up on, so we said that continuous cloud optimization is a kind of a strategic practice, and then it says I picked up on a couple of points there. As I said, optimization is a continuous process and not a one-time event, requiring ongoing adjustment during infrastructure changes. There you go, which is what I was saying, or shifts in the business priorities. So that's kind of, I guess, when new stuff comes in, when you have to stand up a new environment. It involves tuning cloud resources for speed, scale, compliance, and security to derive maximum value. Optimization spans 6 pillars. So this is good. This is kind of actually saying what optimization ought to be or should look like. So operational excellence, security, reliability, performance, efficiency, and sustainability. Now, do you think we can get all of that from our existing tools, Paul? What's your take?
No, I certainly don't. It's not, you might be able to get it from the existing tools, but will you see it? It's almost like, do I need them amalgamated into one dashboard? Because actually, you may find that the actual metrics and the sort of capture of data is happening in various places. But is it pulled together in any coherent form that either an automated system or really good operations staff can see and go, oh God, that's coming up, I need to react to that. Again, we're getting to the predictive bit, aren't we? Rather than reacting to things that have gone. So I think that the straight answer is, the underlying data's there. There may be some of it being captured, but all of it being captured is a problem. And certainly very little of it is being consolidated into an overall picture. So you talked about the optimization there.
Yeah.
that's quite a challenge in a sort of Kubernetes type environment where things are, you're changing very, very rapidly, clusters coming up and clusters coming down. So you either, smart operations people who've been around the block a number of times would probably spend their whole lives trying to tweak and tune that. Would that be, again, best in an automated environment? Probably would be. But I agree with you. I don't think there's a single tool that does it at all.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'd like to see.
And I'll keep saying, I think now is, let's look at FinOps for what it is. It's management accounting in the cloud world. That's all it is. And with the best will in the world, no operations manager would let the accountants crawl all over the front end. And that's what I feel like here. So you're right. 3 months later, it's going, oh, that didn't work, did it? You should have turned that one off.
Yeah.
And then you sort of say, well, shouldn't we put the finance guy in with the operations teams? No way, Jose.
Yeah.
Please do not do that.
Don't do that.
But give the operations teams the tools to be able to see that, and whether that's automated AI based or whether it's just a really good ops team. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a need for a single point of it's another observability tool, isn't it? Really, when you look about it.
Yes, I mean it's either the observability tools, sort of job to do it, or it's the I don't really care who does it, whether it's like I said, FinOps or observability or whatever, or even a further kind of umbrella, sort of tool.
Yeah. The optimization is difficult, of course, because you'll have such a different range of applications running out there, some of which are mission critical, heavy load, low latency requirements, and others, quite the opposite of that. And you're having to marry your way, map your way between all those. So let's not underestimate the scale of the task there.
Yeah. So there's a few points I picked up on under the sort of benefits of optimization for business growth. So there was something around proper optimization enhances security, resilience, customer experience, leading to increased revenues and cost savings. If you free up capital from optimization, it can be reinvested, obviously, for innovation and Gen AI. Which I think there was another article on CIO magazine about I think it was the CIOs making cost savings in IT to divert them for cloud for AI workloads.
It was. I think there was a link in the original article.
That's right.
Back to another one. Yes, you're right. I did the same. I saw it. Yeah.
So and then we'll get to the success stories in a minute. We'll talk about those in a minute because it's kind of listed some, I think, AWS success stories. So those were kind of the main ones around sort of the benefits, for business growth from doing cloud optimization. And then it goes on to practices and best practices and pitfalls to avoid. Now, I don't know why you want to combine those together, but I think it did kind of conflate those a little bit. And it's so the points I picked up there said cloud optimization should be an ongoing lifestyle, not just during initial migration. So it's interesting that it's actually being called a lifestyle, not a culture or a practice or something. So that was an interesting choice of words. Maybe it's just MIT kind of trying to be a little bit clever with that. Focus beyond. Now, this is interesting. Focus beyond cost reduction. This is what I said to you. Not just FinOps, and not just 3 months later, you tell me that cluster's been up and running and nobody's used it for 3 months. Yeah, it needs to be beyond that. What else to say? So focus beyond cost reduction to include operational excellence, security, and performance.
But it was very IT oriented,
That's still IT. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And the issue, particularly where you got FinOps sort of sticking its nose in and saying that's costing too much money, or just the finance department sticking their nose in. It's what you're using the cloud and using the capabilities of the cloud enables you to do from a business perspective.
Yeah.
It's not, I can run so many more analytical queries here. Yes, so yeah, it's costing me a lot of money. What's the business outcome of that? Well, the business outcome of that was we suddenly realized we've got a great advantage over companies X, Y, and Z. And could go, and that's the bit for me that was missing from the report, but also missing
the value aspect of it, the ROI aspect of it. If you do these things, then ROI should be not guaranteed, but it should be visible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it'll get me on my hobby horse of intent again. What was the intent? Why were you doing this in the first place?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that so kind of under the best practice also goes on to say, use diversified workload specific strategies rather than rigid frameworks. Now, this I think lends itself to what you were saying about the type of workload,
absolutely,
the criticality of the workloads, the priorities of the workloads, and so on. And then automate provisioning. Well, I mean, because we just mentioned GitOps, right? Monitoring, yes, and then optimization. But how are you going to do that? It's well and groovy saying these things, and then yes, you've got GitOps, you've got things like infrastructure as code with Terraform and Ansible, all in that camp. Okay, so that's kind of maybe your provisioning sorted, and you got your monitoring, you got your observability tools in the monitoring camp. So take your pick in terms of the observability tools, the open source ones or the enterprise ones. And then optimization, I guess, falls into cloud cost management and FinOps. Okay, but these are three different practices, and it's not the same team doing these. Right? You could have SREs in there, you could have platform engineering teams in there, and you could have a FinOps team in there if you're big enough, right? And you have a separate dedicated FinOps team, but they're not the same team. So how are these guys all talking to each other and agreeing, yes, that cluster should not have been up for 3 months because it's cost us money, and maybe even we shouldn't have allowed it to be up and running for 3. Maybe there should be a policy to stop the developer, to say, sorry, you've only got like a week, or give us the maximum is 2 weeks for you to have this cluster up to do your testing, and then we're going to kill it no matter what, because it's test and dev, is not production, right? And that would actually also, the positive result of doing that, kind of putting a limit on these things, it would actually make the developer make the most of their time while they're building that cluster. And maybe they can't just go back and I'll just create another cluster after 2 weeks. No, hang on. You may need to actually justify that more. Why didn't you finish your testing in 2 weeks, or, whatever it was that you were trying to do, right? And they would need to kind of, maybe as part of the policy, they might need to have to justify it even more. So it becomes kind of almost a detractor for them to do that.
Well, I think you get the policy up front that says, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to do it. And then you need to use a management loop that says, did it happen? Did it work? If not, what's wrong with it? How do we adjust it? All those sort of things.
Yeah.
Back to the, if it's suddenly saying that was not running for 3 months, it is, well, we've got to stop doing, and you wonder how much of that, oh, well, we just let it run on. We haven't got time to do it. I'm back to the sort of, this is the maturity stage of cloud now, where it's in a sort of, a proper management operational loop that says, how are we doing on a regular basis against these things, and not the sort of, because one of the implications of this report, which I sort of strange why it was there, was they started off early on by saying about the amount of the 23% rise year on year of AI resources, and so you get this picture of people still madly getting stuff out onto the internet. And one of the questions that I immediately had was, well, how much of that was AI based, and how much of that was down to AI training going on and all this. But I'm not going to go down that particular rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's almost a sort of implication that it's moving so fast and growing so fast that you can't expect people to have, grown up into this operational efficiency and environment, or this mature operational environment. Well, I think the answer to that is, well, you bloody well should have done.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it just kind of, I think the next point in that section also said promote collaboration between finance and business units. Yeah, but this is the point that I'm saying. You've got all these disparate tools, right? And they don't talk to each other. They're parts of different teams. And now you kind of want to bring in finance. Well, I'm sorry, but I think FinOps does that already. That's the whole point of FinOps, to actually involve the financial side, and the CFOs kind of, engaged in that. If you're a big enough organization to have a kind of a separate, FinOps team, or maybe you put it under the your class center of excellence or something. But the point is that these are still disparate things. They're not together. And you could even go as far as saying, well, let's have a policy as code tool. Yes, there is policy as code tools. Just go to the CNCF landscape and pick out Kyverno from Nomata. That's what Kyverno does. Kyverno is a policy as code product. And the whole idea is to allow you to implement whatever type of policies that you want. But it's still another tool. Yeah, it's not, none of this stuff is, as you said, to ask those questions that you just asked, Paul. None of this stuff is converging together to give us the full picture. Why did we allow that developer to just deploy that cluster and have no end to that cluster, no cleanup, of that cluster at the end of the development period? So maybe we should have a policy for that. Why did the FinOps wait for 3 months to tell us that it was actually being used up? Well, because we only run that scan or whatever, or the FinOps report only comes out every 3 months, every quarter or something. So, and that will allow you to make the changes. But if you can't see those things, then you're not going to be able to make those improvements.
Yeah, the danger, of course, of being totally policy driven is that policy tends not to keep track or keep pace with the rapid pace of change. And therefore, you've got to have some sort of flexibility that says, okay, that didn't work. How quickly can we adjust the policy if that's what it is? That's what I mean about the loop. I mean, there's got to be this loop that says, let's review, whether it's a weekly or a monthly or a daily or an hour. I don't know how you do it, but fundamentally, the danger is you get a policy that remains set in stone, even as the world around it is changing, and it becomes more and more unwieldy and less relevant. Probably not unwieldy, but less relevant. So I think you've got to be careful not to get into a mindset that says, "Oh, I've done policy. That's fine. We can leave it now."
I think we've got that well covered in the cloud native space. So we should be okay with actually making that, more automated, more agile. There is capability of that. I know that, for example, like the Kyverno project can do that. And also with the advent of AI, we should be able just to tell our future, if it's not there already, our future Kyverno agent to say, oh, remember that policy that we set for developers only being allowed a test or dev cluster for 2 weeks? Well, now we've got this massive AI project or something, so increase that to 6 weeks or whatever the number is, right? And then the agent should be able to go and change that policy automatically. And all we did was a prompt. Yeah, all we did was tell it to do a prompt, and it propagated that change because we're authorized, because I'm logged in and I'm authorized to make that change. And then the agent should be able to take care of that, sort of change that policy. So that's how I kind of foresee that going. But that's still, the problem still remains, is that there isn't a cohesive view of all of these things coming together to give you that, sort of optimization, picture. Yeah, there's nothing there that's giving you that sort of overall view, and that's, I think, what's missing. That's the tool.
I mean, how far do we think the hyperscalers themselves need to join in this if you like, effort, because they've got cost optimization tools. They've got tools to monitor the infrastructure and the PaaS and what have you. How far, at what point do we say it's just because given that most of this is running on a hyperscaler's infrastructure somewhere, how far is this the responsibility of the operations team within the actual business organization? And how far do you want to merge that with what you're getting from AWS, GCP, and Azure?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in their own vested interest, it should be high on their agenda when it comes in, especially with the larger corporate customers that they have. It should be very much high on their agenda. I appreciate, for example, the financial sector, they have their own FinOps tools. If you jump on any of the FinOps, webinars and calls, if you go to FinOps X, it's always, the Barclays of the world and the Deutsche Banks and the Bank of America and JP Morgan, whoever it is, JPMC, and people like that will jump. Citigroup will be on there because they have an army of people that are just doing FinOps as part of their IT, and that's all they do. So they can afford to do that, and I think it's in the vested interest of the hyperscalers to say, I think there's a bit missing here, and we should maybe try and fill that gap. Now, you could fill the gap with TAMs, their technical account managers, which when FinOps started kicking off and the whole, cloud cost management stuff kicked off, 5-10 years ago, whatever it was, they armed those people with that type of remit. So they were out at their customers and saying, just manually at that time, without even any sort of cost optimization tools, just saying, oh yeah, you guys can cut this down and you can close that down, and that will save you $5 or $10 here and there per month, in your sort of AWS, cloud environment. So that was initially done with humans. Now, I don't know if you want to revisit that now and do that again and kind of give that directive to somebody like your systems engineers or your TAMs as AWS. I don't know. I don't know how they run their business, and I don't know how they interact with those, large or medium-sized, enterprises. But there certainly should be something there that will do that, because again, like I said, it's in their vested interest, because you've got things like sovereignty, digital sovereignty, biting at their heels.
Yeah, eventually, if they don't get to grips with it, there will be either new technology or new competitors come in who do offer that and start to, as you say, bite their heels, take some of their business away. So it's interesting. It's quite difficult to get incumbent suppliers in any generation who've got a sort of dominant position to maybe go down that route, because it's always like, oh my God, but I think the cloud people are probably better equipped than the old legacy people of killing your children, as it were, eating your children and creating something else, So
I mean, I think like I said, I think there is a gap there. I think there is a gap there for a kind of a governance tool, a policy tool, something like that. And I'm sure if you go high up enough, you'll probably find one from the likes of IBM or some obscure, software vendor. But is it kind of, well, these things tend to be quite niche, right? So if you get someone like IBM,
I thought you meant you were calling IBM an obscure software.
No. I said or. Is my mic working okay? So someone like IBM who can kind of does have that wide, diverse portfolio, right? Is probably running something like that, or offers something like that. Or you find it with niche vendors who are kind of just doing that very focused group. And I think I've told you before of things like the continuous profiling. So when you're actually developing the application, you continuously improve how the application is working and how it's using resources, whether it's API calls or pulling resources from the AWS cloud or whatever to do its job. And if you optimize it at that point, then it should be as optimized as you can be when it actually goes into production. You've kind of done your best to, rather than some other unwieldy, crazy, application that's just kind of hogging resources and, over overstretching, in terms of those resources, right? So this is and those kind of things are provided by very sort of niche vendors. So I would expect this to be either, again, one of those niche vendors who are kind of doing this sort of cloud optimization tool, or it would be somebody who's diverse enough to say, hey, I think there's a gap in the market here. Maybe we should develop this, or actually buy that niche vendor, to bring in that tool. But there needs to be that tool because, as we said, I think all of these other areas, policy as code, FinOps, etc., observability and so on, they're just not talking to each other. They don't talk to each other. None of those tools, as far as I know, integrate. And maybe, Dave Royce, you can actually correct us on this. Maybe they do, or maybe there is a cloud optimization tool out there. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you have anything on that. Anyway, so just kind of conscious of time. So the other things that it goes into are things like practical steps for cloud investment and optimization, automation, and real-time cloud management, I should say. And then I'll come back on the success stories, but were there any other points that you picked up on in the report, Paul, for you?
Well, I mean, they were talking about experimentation, and almost like sort of centers of excellence. I don't know if it was that or the report we're going to talk about later on.
Right.
But sort of centers of excellence, which people keep talking about that, and I find it slightly difficult because they become so remote from the operation.
Yeah.
That, and all the best practice, and then having to put it out into the it never seems to make the transition. So, right. And again, experimentation, okay. Yes, they do need to experiment. They do need to have, if you like, little teams working on things. That's right. But there was a mention of centers of excellence, which I think was, it's slightly passé. That I'm not sure centers of excellence have actually delivered that much to people. And if everybody wants to argue with me, that's fine. But we keep talking about COEs, and you're diverting people from operations into the center of excellence, and the operation carries on in the same way, and the center of excellence never actually gets out of a sort of experimentation mode. It's
yes. Yeah. No, I do agree where it should sit. So all of this stuff should be center of excellence. Even your AI should be an AI center of excellence, and that should be, as far as I'm concerned, a subsidiary of, or a subgroup of your overall sort of CCOE. So I'm not really too concerned with that. That should be fairly logical. But I am concerned that they're asking for something and they're saying to do it, but they're not telling you necessarily how to do it exactly or what to use. I mean, why doesn't AWS in the report say, and here's our tools that allow you that help you to do that?
Yeah.
And there's nothing in there about that it's in association with AWS. Come on, AWS.
That's why I was strange.
It's just really odd.
Who's leading who led that report, MIT or AWS?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, Paul. Either one. If it's MIT and they don't know bugger all about about AWS services, they should go to AWS and say, hey guys, you're paying for this, right? Or you're sponsoring the report, which is why we're writing it. Let's face some facts here. So what tools can do this? What tools can do cloud optimization? And then AWS should be able to say something around that, or AWS should be proactively saying, and the tools that you need in AWS are, and then list out those tools. Or here's something that we've created. Or we do this with our TAM team that's all, tirelessly working with our enterprise customers, blah, 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 anything that will kind of give you
I agree.
direction.
That's why I found the report strange, that when you get an organization like MIT, which should be right down at the detail level, MIT, you expect them to be really technically sharp, and AWS, I was exactly what you just said. I was expecting to see that. And it was like,
there's nothing there.
Why the hell did they do this? Because any of your wonderful influencers or any SI could have put that together.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Well, you and I could have put it together.
Well, I didn't want to.
AWS should have paid us. Oh, no, I think you should. So AWS, if you're watching, please come to us next time. Maybe they don't want to come to us. We'll probably give them a hard time. Ask them all the hard questions.
That's on the retired piece on my side. This is on the not retired side.
That's on the not retired. It's definitely the not retired.
Definitely on the retired side.
Okay. So let's get to success stories. Now, I found this success story is probably the poorest part of the report. You've got one gambling company, Dream Casino, great, like a well done AWS, and then another one is the software vendor, that's BMC Software,
and with an on-premises solution.
Yeah, with a BMC Patrol. Yeah,
exactly.
But we'll come back to the data center, guys. And then what's the third one? Let's have a laugh.
AWS.
Themselves. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Could you not have found somebody else as a really credible, Deutsche Bank or Bank of America, JPMC? I just settled for UBS. But
it is, having worked on that side of the fence, getting decent, quotable case studies is a challenge. And the bigger the organization, the less likely they are. Either that or they spend 3 or 4 months passing it around between their various, PR and legal people saying, oh, can we do this? And can we?
You could have anonymized it. You could have said a leading German bank or a leading, US investment, company or something, financial investment company.
It was an embarrassing list.
That is really poor. I found that very poor. So the customer success, very poor. And just putting yourself in there. I mean, they've clearly saved a lot of money. They saved, what did they say, 260 million annually, $60 million annually. So saving over 4,500 development years and $260 million annually. So this is by AWS used AI to automate application modernization. Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with this stuff.
No.
That's just converting this is an old story. AWS brings this out at every reInvent and every AWS summit. And they've done it. They are doing this because it was at the AWS summit at London a few weeks ago. They do this through their own tools. So they use, their own AI tools to do this with. And what the tool does essentially is it runs your old Java code through, a modernization AI engine, and so you get Java, I don't know, something silly like Java 7 or something here, and then or JavaScript or whatever, and then you get Java 16 or whatever the latest version of Java and JavaScript is coming out the other end. And that's what that is. So the developers didn't do it. So you save them over, 4,000 years of whatever of development time, and you save that much money. But what's that got to do with cloud optimization? I thought we were talking about cloud infrastructure, not code optimization. Because you could run, so you could do that, and then you put that on a VMware cluster.
You can
in your data center.
If you optimize the code, it will run better in their environment, and you get more bang for your buck. But it's tenuous.
And it's I don't know. I mean, Kiro or Cairo, whatever they call it, is their code generation tool. Amazon Quick is their agentic app that runs on your business. That's a bit like Copilot running on your business, I guess, and that can find you stuff and what have you. But the one that they really do is called the one that's focused on code modernization is called Transform, AWS Transform and Custom. So that one actually is a modernization engine, or they call it modernization at the speed of AI. So that's an AI engine that modernizes your code. Like I said, that will look at your old Java script or whatever Java code that you've got, for example, and it will convert it to the latest version. Or if you're brave enough, it will convert it to another language. So you could go to Python or, Rust or whatever your flavor is. So you could do that, right? But that is code. That's an indirect, the cloud infrastructure cost saving that you're making there is an indirect result. It's not a direct result. You're going, it's an indirect result because you optimize code, and as a result of that, we don't need as many cloud resources. Therefore, we can switch off a few things and save some dollars, pounds.
Well, you can argue that, yes, it's not directly responsible.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not that 3-month cluster that, Kubernetes cluster that developer spun up that's been sitting there, and now we've identified it and we need to turn it off.
But I think and this is where they've not really done themselves justice, is that the whole report was trying to pull together all the sort of streams of, things that you need to optimize in to deliver business value.
Yeah.
But that would be one, but interestingly, I would have thought if in the BMC software one, they were talking about the AWS well-architected framework.
Yeah,
it would have been nice to hear a bit more about how that one works.
Well, yeah, I mean that's just their follow the
steps,
follow the WAF and build your stuff based on what the WAF. I know that they provide code samples for things like Terraform and CloudFormation and stuff like that. So they do make it really easy for you to kind of knock out a VPC environment in AWS using that. But a lot of it is just kind of guiding principles. They're guidelines for how to build your landing zone and things like that. So we at T-System, we follow that when we help kind of migrate customers into the hyperscalers. We do follow their WAFs.
So again, we're coming back to it's a pretty weak set of.
Yeah, but do you know what would be really cool on that? Drop that in an AI tool. Put your WAF in an AI tool so that I can ask her what I want, and it will just go, oh yeah, according to the WAF, I can generate it, and here's the code. Here's the Terraform code. Here's the CloudFormation code.
Yeah,
right. That would be really good. Drop the WAF into an AI tool. That would really help out, IT teams and platform engineering teams. Okay, all right. So that's that report. I think we've done it to death now. Let's move on to the second topic. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. Right. So our second topic is what are little APIs made of? At least that was my title. It's called the API Master Guide. The API Master Guide. And it's by a guy called Ashish Joshi. And he is, I think, what is he, a lead engineer or something at UBS, I believe.
Yeah.
So, interesting post. Now, for any Star Trek fans, you might be able to discern that the actual title I used, what are little APIs made of, is actually paying homage to one of this original Star Trek episodes, which is called What Are Little Girls Made Of? So I thought I'll just kind of play on the title there. Okay,
I didn't realize that was a Star Trek one.
Yes, and it's the original series episode. I'll include the IMDb link in the description.
It's a children's nursery rhyme as well.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, it's a lot of sugar and spice and all things nice.
Ah, okay, that one. Yeah. It's I know it from the Star Trek episode. So, yeah.
You never were a child, were you?
No. No, I was born into like a CTO role. I'm paying homage with my Star Trek T-shirt today. So there you go. Anyway, so so API Master Guide. I think this is really comprehensive. It's like a cheat sheet on APIs, which is really cool. So you've got your things like your status codes that you get in APIs. What do those mean? What kind of really cover all the details on it. There's quite a lot sort of crammed into that one GIF that you will either put on the screen, guys, or we'll include a link in the description for you. And then use cases for APIs, which is really good. I think this is always kind of misunderstood where APIs should be used and where you should be just kind of doing direct calls or something more simplified. And then what are the features of APIs? And then the top 9 API methods. So what's the kind of what are some of the codes that you use or instructions that you use to kind of, in an API call. And then the types. Now, I did cover with Steve Fenton. I'm trying to remember what episode. I think it was the August episode last year, we did a similar one, but that was for Kubernetes protocols. So some of the protocols that are in the API types here are either the same or similar to those, or a subset maybe of those as well. So those include things like obviously REST and SOAP and gRPC and so on, which we've again looked at. So I'll again drop the link in the description for you of that episode with Steve Fenton. But yeah, Paul, what did you think of the chart, and did it kind of make sense to you? Was enough covered in there? Was there anything that you felt was missing, or?
Well, I don't think I know if anything was missing because I'm not technical in that sense. I thought the chart was good. It was very easy to understand, and in fact, it was similar to what we did. Was it last month on the anti-patterns and
yes, the anti-patterns, which was quite cool as well.
Which is quite cool for microservices. And if you just talked about one of Kubernetes there. So yeah, really good. But what struck me forcibly looking at that and thinking about what we did last month, and now you've added other things in, is that these are the sort of standards, if you like, or the sort of guides that should be fed into something like Claude.
Yeah. For
Claude to go and trawl through your existing code and say, how good is it? I think that would be really cool. Because otherwise, you're giving overworked people another set of, okay, that's great, I'll keep looking at that, and the reality is they might use 30% of that and forget to use the other 70%. That's the challenge with all these things. They're brilliant, but you need to keep But I thought, actually, this is where a Gen AI tool could be very, very powerful.
Yes.
Train it on these sort of inputs and then say, right, now go trawl through our code and see how good it is.
Yes. And remember what I said, I think it was again in the March episode, when I said that we've instructed AI to do the code generation part, but there isn't enough for the design, the architecture, and the enterprise architecture part of it. We're not doing enough AI there. Now, there is AI tools. I have actually spotted those on LinkedIn, so they have actually come through my feed a couple of times. But it's just not enough of them. And they're being done by like nobody's startups versus someone like AWS acquiring them, or Microsoft, putting them out. Why is it Microsoft and Google? And I mean, they've got these, as we said, these well-architected frameworks, right? Well, like I said, put that in a freaking API, in a AI tool, and then we can query that. And then it can come up with this standard for us and say, I think in what you're describing, you should use gRPC as your protocol and not, AMQP or something. Because there's a difference. And what you've described, what your use case is, or what you're trying to design, gRPC is a better fit for you rather than something else.
If you got this right, and the right person got this right, you could put some of the big SIs and consultancies out of business.
Absolutely.
Which I thought that might.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, I thought that might amuse you, but that's the point. So why haven't the likes of the big SIs and big consultancies started to do that? Because they would be far more productive, give far better outcomes to their customers if they went and did that sort of thing. So
absolutely.
There's wonderful that people are putting these things up on LinkedIn. Let's see how we get it to the next phase is really what's coming. Because technically, I'm not, competent to comment on how good that master guide is. You are, but I'm not. And but it was easy to follow. I mean, it was interesting, and it opened my eyes because I think I probably had the wrong impression of APIs before I read that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not let's not glorify it. It's just basically a standard approach to how the apps can communicate and how you can query the apps and get information, put information, all that kind of stuff. That's essentially what you're doing, but it is a standardized way of doing it, not a all over the place, and certainly not one that you're having to invent yourself. That's the important thing.
Yeah, but it's doing more, I think, than I thought it was doing. I just thought it was, handy interfaces, a new way of doing interfaces. It's much more than that. And people used to talk about, and still do talk about, the API economy, and I couldn't think
Yeah, that's the other
Now I
term. Yeah,
understand. Now I
he's
understand.
avoided that in this post. So I give Ashish credit for avoid using
Yeah.
that, or getting the
But at
temptation.
least it's, it now makes a little more sense of why people might have used that somewhat dubious term.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So yeah, but I mean, I think um, I think it's okay. I think there's probably a few kind of things that could be clarified or added to it as more. But this is a cheat sheet. It's not like a comprehensive thing. There's a lot more behind each of the sections there that you can kind of go and explore. And as a developer, you'd probably have to sit down and kind of learn a lot of this stuff. And some of it is also dictated really by when you come into a situation, it's probably dictated by previous standards and what the enterprise architecture team is kind of dictated to you. So they're not always kind of free to just go, oh yeah, I'll just use the REST protocol in this case to do my API. No, we use gRPC here. Sorry, my friend, but you can't use REST because we are a gRPC house or whatever, that type of thing. So yeah, but I think the post kind of itself started. We'll drop obviously details for all this for you guys as well in the description of the video. But it kind of just starts a little bit philosophical. It says APIs are kind of the backbone of every system. Yeah, fair enough, and they should be. Poorly designed APIs don't just fail; they show slowdown in the entire organization. Yeah, I guess. It's more kind of really a pain for the developers if you don't have that sort of standardized approach, and certainly for your third-party partners who want to integrate with you for whatever reason. So your Google Maps, and they want to use Google Maps in their app. If you don't have an API, then it's going to make it a little bit difficult for them to use Google Maps, right? That's the kind of, I think, the more useful thing. So he doesn't really touch on that here, but I think it's more detrimental if you don't have them for partnerships and things like that, and for people to kind of come into your ecosystem, right? And then obviously the other part is kind of integration. So how do we integrate with somebody else? How do we interface with them, and so on? Status codes and whatever, that's kind of really in the weeds. So I'm not really interested in kind of all the details of that. And again, sort of methods of behavior and so on. That's all kind of part of what you can perform. But things like key design principles, which he included in the post itself. I don't think it's in the chart necessarily. So he's talking about sort of statelessness, security, versioning, scalability, all being part of the principles. And then he does touch on the protocols, so the API types, as he calls them. So things like the REST and GraphQL, gRPC, and so on, and then puts those into kind of what they should be used for. But again, I think that's a repeat of the chart itself. And then he goes on to say they design developers or teams design APIs for developers, but forget they are designing for systems at scale. Yes, I think I would agree with that. The scope should not be just for developers. So if you're kind of satisfied your developers and they're happy with what you've done, you've done your job. I think it should be extended beyond that. Like I said, third parties, future expansion, integration with, other tools and platforms that are not maybe on our radar right now. So you should be like some kind of future proofing included as part of the interfaces that you create as well. And then he kind of just says about the shift, kind of building APIs to designing system interfaces that scale, which I agree with. So that I think he does get that at the end. Kind of the scaling part of it is important. So yeah, I think I like it. I like the cheat sheets. It's kind of I could probably go and I know most of this stuff and kind of I've seen and kind of dabbled with it in the past. I'm not a full-time developer, so I'll put my hand up and say I don't really use this on a daily basis. But putting it, I think, all together does help. As you said, it kind of gives you a bit of a view into that world, and then you can go and explore that more. And especially for budding developers, I think this is really good. For those who are kind of interested in becoming developers, could kind of go and look at that and go, oh yeah, that's my cheat sheet. I'll print that out and put it on my wall. So then I've got a little cheat sheet, and I don't have to Google it or go to ChatGPT or something. But like I said, yeah, you're right in what you said, rather, that let's drop this into an AI tool, guys. Let's make this something that the AI tool can guide us with and help us with our enterprise architecture designs, right?
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. So topic number 3 is neglecting cloud, ? Good luck with your AI, or good luck with AI. So this is by Grant Gross, who's a journalist, I think, for CIO, again, CIO.com articles. He's written again in April of this year. So it's actually referencing the NTT data report from March of this year, which was about AI ambitions at risk, as only 14% of enterprises fully realize cloud value. That's what the NTT data study finds. Again, we'll drop the links to both the CIO article itself by Grant Gross, as well as the original NTT data report, which is based on as well. Well, what was your take on this? I mean, I personally, wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we're kind of maybe both in the same camp there in terms of how we kind of do this. But give me your take on it first.
Yeah, the basic premise, I think, was, as you say, I agree with that. AI is if you're not up to date with cloud, and there's different reasons, isn't there? Because there's the where are you going to run it and how are you going to run AI? And we've had these debates long and hard about, would you run AI in your own data centers on your own kit? And the answer for most of it is no way.
Probably not. Yeah.
Now, I think things are changing. Obviously, inferencing will change a lot of the case, but fundamentally, this is going to be cloud-based, whether we like it or not, from an AI perspective. And therefore, and there's the NTT, because I looked at the whole NTT report, which is not unsurprising, but it's basically a look at cloud maturity amongst large enterprises. There's about 2,300 sort of senior decision-making IT execs globally.
Which is not bad. Which is not a bad sample.
Which is not a bad sample, because that's your first sort of concern when you look at these, is the sample's quite good.
You're not using yourself like the AWS report as a
no.
as a success story.
So they've taken their time and put together, and none of it's particularly surprising. I think in the sense that if you look at cloud maturity as a sort of 5-level model, how many organizations are going to be at that top end of the market? So only 14% there. Yeah, that's right. So
makes sense.
The vast majority of people are in that bell curve in the middle, and there'll be things they do well and other things they do badly. The question is, does that mean that they will be in the same position with AI? That's the challenge for them, is if I'm going to have to use the cloud extensively for my AI, and I haven't got my cloud operation, if you like, cloud usage sort of properly sorted out, and don't really realize what I'm doing, then AI is just going to amplify the problem.
Yes. Yeah. I fully agree with that. And I think this is flying in the face of that whole sort of digital sovereignty. We got to be sovereign, got to run everything in our, go back to the data center and, put everything there. We've talked about, the not just kind of rebuilding your data center, but if you're going to put AI in your data center, is your data center able to cope with AI workloads? And we've said that AI requires a different type of workload and different machinery and different, technology and power requirements and so on. And we're already constrained on power, as most of the world, Western world seems to be. So there's all that kind of physical limitation. And then here we're kind of, talking about the operational stuff as well, right? So we're, they're talking about kind of, if you're going to neglect the cloud or not update your cloud or, prepare your cloud, then how are you going to do AI? So this is actually making that point that you and I have kind of talked about, because there's a, rush for taking AI back into, and running it in your own data center, people running your own AI model and so on. Yeah, I agree. And that's there's
cases for that.
Yeah, there is cases for that. I agree. But not everybody can and should be doing that, right? But there just seems to be like a blanket approach to, to all the like articles and posts and influencers and so on that are putting that out. Whereas actually this is saying exactly the opposite of that. It's going, against that grain. And I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment here, because we're, rushing into, telling, enterprises to go back to the data center. When actually, maybe we can just kind of do it where we are right now, in public cloud. And like I said, yeah. So so digital sovereignty. If you've got that requirement, or you're in a market sector that has regulations, you need to comply with the, EU acts or the GDPR, whatever it is, then that's fine. You need to do that.
Yeah, and we need to make the distinction between training and inference,
and that's the other part, which have not even mentioned that yet. But yeah,
no, but there was an interesting. The report drew out an interesting sort of conundrum, if you like, in that, a huge percentage of the respondents said, that investment in cloud investment is critical for AI success. And yet what we then found out was that a good percentage of those people who'd said that are investing in AI and cutting back on cloud.
Yes, which is what the previous report was.
Exactly. It was almost like the same thing coming out again. And it was like,
the MIT
okay,
report,
so you've got this challenge that said, you really need to have your cloud game, you need to up your cloud game, and invest in it properly to make sure AI works. But the pressure on boards at the moment to do something in AI means that they're trying to, they're trying to cut budget from somewhere else because they haven't yet worked out the business case properly.
Yeah. So this is the CIOs and CTOs finding budgets, finding some percentage of budget from their existing IT budget or cloud budget, and diverting that to AI projects.
Yeah. Under pressure from the board,
while being under the pressure from the C-level.
You've got to do something in AI, without really thinking that one through. So and this comes out in the report. The report's actually very good. It's quite detailed.
Yes,
a lot of it. But again, it's not a surprise. When you get the sort of people who, there's a big split, if you like, almost like 50-50 splits on people who feel they've got value out of the cloud and value out of AI or haven't. And again, that's where we're at with this at the moment. There's a lot of activity going on, and even, never mind cloud cost optimization, people haven't worked out the ROI yet properly, all those sort of issues. And so they're launching off into AI in that sort of unoptimized, under-optimized environment. And it's just going to be, just said it, AI tends to magnify anything else.
Yeah, and just on that sort of point, and this is not necessarily in the report, but just kind of on that theme that you're going with, my concern is that we're compounding far too many of these movements on top of the CIOs, CTOs, and the IT team, basically, the IT departments in general. We're just compounding far too many. We rushed them to the cloud. Then we said, well, I didn't, but other people said, repatriate the workloads. Then we said, no, we got to run the POC back in the cloud for AI. And now we're saying, no, we need to take them out because you need to own your AI models. And then we're saying, no, but now for inference, you need to be running it at the edge and not really actually in a gigafactory or or an AI data center or something. So there's kind of a lot of this, shaking about. You're kind of in this, tuck, and then you're being just scrambled all over the place. That's the nearest thing I can find as an example. Just being scrambled because the driver's kind of doing this around the crowds and whatever in the roads, and you kind of just being scrambled all over the place, and I think that's compounding a lot of them. The messaging is getting confusing. 1 minute it's, do it all in the cloud. The next minute is now bring it back to the data center. Next minute is now get it to the edge and so on. And I think that's just, we're not taking enough time to do something, to mature something, to get it to a point. And then we can say, okay, so now I can actually see the next peak. The next peak is X, Y, Z. So now we've done this now, we've conquered this peak. Let's move on to the next peak. And what you were saying, what you were just saying now, some people are still trying to migrate to the cloud. Yes. I mean, we still migrate customers. One of our bread and butters is migrating customers to the cloud. They're still trying to get out of VMware land and land somewhere else, whether that's public cloud or a Colo or something. They need to still, people are still trying to migrate out. So that whole migration thing is still happening.
Yeah.
So what I was saying to you previously as well about repatriation, when people just say, oh, just repatriate it because it just costs too much in the cloud. We can't be bothered to optimize it. Right. And then, but hang on, I thought we were getting in this direction. No, we decided to go back that way again.
But again, the whole repatriation thing has been, smoke and mirrors. Because
absolutely.
It's
falls on.
Repatriation has been very specific cases of stuff being brought back that were already microservices based. And
it's still running. It's still running the same environment.
You're going to transfer your monolithic application to the cloud and then have to repatriate it, which was the sort of subtext.
Yeah.
It was absolute bullshit.
Yes, it was absolutely
absolute bullshit. But it's there is a 50-50 split between people who think they're getting value out of the cloud and people who don't think they're getting value out of the cloud, and that comes out of the report. The report's interesting. It's worth downloading.
So just kind of looking at that in a little bit more detail. So it says it argues that many enterprises are kind of rushing into AI while under investing in the cloud, but we said also they are diverting their funds as well, so that may trigger the sort of the underinvestment. So they're basically not cleaning up their cloud foundations as they should be, right, to scale, to have success and scale their AI. The NTT data study found, as we said, 14% of organizations are sort of cloud evolved, and that actually makes a lot of sense. As we said, most people are just struggling to migrate to AI. Despite 99% of organizations saying AI is increasing demand for cloud, 84% report that cloud spending has remained flat. So the budget hasn't increased, which again lends itself to people diverting funding from one part to the other. 88% of IT leaders believe insufficient cloud investment is putting AI modernization and cloud native initiatives at risk. Cloud native initiatives have been at risk for over a decade. Since kind of Kubernetes came out and all the, everybody kind of rushed to go for that, rushed to go to that. There's been underinvestment in all of that, which is like what I said, why we're still doing cloud migrations, because it's still happening, because people still have workloads to do, and it's a slow process, and they're not getting the budget. We're not getting the opportunity to modernize the apps and to turn them into a cloud native, design.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, this is not a new paradigm in IT. It's
No,
always been the case. It's
yeah,
always been, and the case often is, poor understanding of risk and reward,
mm.
poor
And the
poor
value,
ability to actually manage projects,
yeah,
which means that everything overruns, and and let's face it, you can't do everything at the same time. I mean, and as a computer salesman, I always used to know that my biggest competitor was do nothing, because
yeah,
the risk of doing something was greater than the risk of doing nothing. It was only
mm.
when you flipped that you got people to move. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but there was one specific thing when we were talking about
yeah,
this that really did it grated. I thought, no, this is wrong. Um, so AI identified as the top cloud skills gap. Percentage of organizations that say a lack of AI skills will remain the top skills challenge affecting their cloud strategy over the next 12 months. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. Lack of cloud skills will affect your cloud strategy. Um, uh, but an AI skill won't necessarily impact your cloud strategy.
mm.
I just didn't get it, because they were
There's
saying
no correlation
there's
between
no
those two.
correlation
I
between
agree.
them.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so they had 49% of cloud leaders thought that was the major issue, and only 33% of others.
mm.
And I just thought, I don't get that was the one part of that where I was going, no, that doesn't tie up.
Yes,
Yes, we know there's going to be AI skills, but that's hardly a lack of AI skills, but that's hardly going to be an excuse, if you like, for not optimizing and getting your cloud strategy better. If you're saying that actually what we're doing is losing people with cloud skills going into AI, okay, that might be, but it wasn't said like that, and you think, okay, so I'm having to make that assumption for them, that there's people moving from cloud to AI, focus on AI, and that's impacting the cloud strategy, but it wasn't articulated and expanded on in any way. It was like just left in the air.
or maybe it was just a typo, Paul.
Yeah, well, they were talking about the chief AI officer as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were in amongst all those sort of areas.
And I think that's all valid, and I agree with you that I didn't see the correlation in that. I spotted that as well. I think in passing, I'm looking at other places, but the ones that I agree with that. The ones that I really found kind of interesting was, and they were a little bit academic again. This is kind of obviously quite quite well known, and maybe in our circles, because we kind of do a lot of this sort of stuff, and maybe in other circles it's not. But weak cloud maturity often means fragmented data, poor governance, you know, uh, having to deal with or continue to deal with legacy systems, and this all undermines the AI model quality and operational reliability. I think it was one of the points in there, and yeah, I mean but this is kind of, again, this is going back to, did we just migrate into the cloud and just kind of dump our workloads and said, well, job done and we're finished, which is what the first topic was kind of talking about, and it's no, actually we can't do that. So it's a continuous process, right? And then it said several experts cited in the article argue that the AI pilots can succeed on weak foundations, but not the production AI. Those will fail without sort of a mature cloud operation. Yes, they would, because we can see with things like AI agents, we don't have like a standardized way to authenticate them and authorize them to do something in our production environment, unless they're augmented in an existing software platform. So they're part of an existing software tool that we use, maybe our observability tool or a DevOps tool or whatever. But otherwise, we can't. So yeah, so I think that kind of not having the foundations in place, and we were, I guess, to a degree, talking about foundations when we talked about policy as code in the other topic as well. Not having or having weak foundations will allow you to, you can do your pilots on that and kind of rig that up and do the proof of concept, but not your production. So your production at scale is going to be completely different for that AI workload. I think there was a highlight on things like modernization, which we touched on as being a top priority, with many organizations, still saying legacy applications and outdated data platforms are slowing their innovation. So I agree with that. And again, that's a fairly common occurrence. And then there was kind of recommendations, I think, from NTT Data and beyond as well. But so things like stronger governance and having a AI and cloud strategy, modernizing your application architecture. Yeah, nothing new there, really. That's all kind of fairly academic.
I mean, there were six quite sensible, these are the key, rules for or steps in particularly when you're developing AI and cloud in tandem. I think that's the thing that comes out of this, is that these are not an either or. You've got to do both things together.
Correct.
The interesting point for me in there, they were talking about integration between, as you move into inference and you move into sovereign clouds and private clouds, thinking your architecture through as to how that's all going to work together. The integration between them is going to be interesting.
Very interesting. Good luck with that. So all the enterprises out there, good luck with that.
But it was a report that certainly sort of made you sit up and think about things.
No, I think it was very good. And like as you said earlier, the sample was really good.
Yeah,
it
would have been useful to see some of the regional variations in that.
True.
But hey, now we're getting choosy.
I think we would. I think we need to make do with what we have. Sorry, go ahead.
I think there are cultural and sort of political differences between the regions that will have a big impact on what happens.
Yeah, but just like the CIOs, Paul, we have to make do with what we have, right? They're having to make do with the existing budgets and diverting budgets.
It's a bit like us as citizens of whatever country. We have to make do with the politicians we've got. Yes,
that's true. Yeah, not for long, hopefully, but we'll see.
Well, you'll just get another one of the same. So anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, excellent. So I think I think overall good report. Lots of good stuff. It goes against the grain and smacks the. We need to go back and repatriate or go back to the data center for whatever reason in the face, right across the face, which I really like. And that was the best part of the article. And obviously the report kind of backs that up with, from NTT Data backs that up with more, more details as well. But really good article. And as you said, I think there's lots of stuff. I think, like I said, for you and I, we know this stuff because we kind of follow it and discuss it and read a lot about it. But I think for others who are not, or are looking for that kind of strategic direction or insight, this is really useful, I think, for them. It gives them exactly that picture that you and I kind of drum on about for a long time. So and there's obviously kind of conclusions in there and so on. Like I said, it's comprehensive. We'll drop the link for you guys, so won't go into a lot more detail on that. Okay, I think we're there, Paul.
I think we're there. Yeah.
Have we exhausted all three topics? I think we have.
I'm sure we can come back.
I know. We will. Next month. Yeah, look out for next month.
Yes.
We've gone almost as long as the live stream that we did for Cloud State of Play. But guys, if you want to check that out, we did 7 topics in that, which was fantastic, and actually had a couple of guests drop in as well. So I'll drop a link in the description for you. That was our first attempt at a Cloud State of Play live stream. So that was really good. I think that went really well as well. But anyway, okay. Paul, thank you very much, ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it as always. Yeah, always been good to have you on. All the links, as we said, will be in the description of the video, so check those out. as I've keeps maintaining and saying, sometimes YouTube is very cruel. They don't allow me to put all the details there. So you might see a pinned comment. So check out the comment section. There might be some more details there. It just depends on whether I can squeeze it all into the description or not. If you have any comments, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us some comments. What do you think about these topics? Whether these affect you, what you think about them. Do you agree, disagree with us? We don't mind. Please let us know. Give us your views as well. Please support the channel in all the usual ways. So that really helps me out to continue the channel, to continue making these videos, and hopefully trying to kind of hit the next milestone, whatever that is, in the subscription or the list of, or the number of subscribers, I should say, as well. But yeah, we welcome all of that. So please drop it in. Please support the channel. And that's it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.